the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. I want to welcome you again to Chicago Business Licensing Food Edition. My name is Amir Aviles, Business Consultant Supervisor here at the Business Center, and I will be your presenter for this portion of the webinar, where a high-level overview of how to apply for a license, the most common food license types, and the necessary requirements will be provided. So thank you for being here, and with that, let's get started. Today's workshop, titled Chicago Business Licensing Food Edition, has been designed to give you a high-level overview of what to expect when it comes to obtaining a City of Chicago license to sell food out of a retail food establishment, that is a brick and mortar location, to prepare food in a regulated facility by means of a shared kitchen user license, and finally, to be able to sell food from the public way. We will cover what that process looks like if you plan on, give me a second here, if you plan on applying online versus in person. We will also cover the common license types of food licenses, document needed for your application, information that will be furnished, steps to receiving zoning approval, the application completion process once zoning has been approved, paying for your license, probable inspections your business will undergo, holds that may prevent license issuance, and finally, receiving your business license. So to start, online versus in person. When it comes to applying for a license, you have two options. You can either do it online via Chicago Business Direct or in person at the Small Business Center located here at City Hall. To submit your application online, you would visit chicago.gov/businessdirect. And once there, you will first register. That is, you'll create a user profile. Now, do note that only one user profile is allowed per person, so be sure to read the instructions carefully so as to ensure the created user profile is compliant. By registering or creating a user profile, also note that email and photo ID verification will be required so that you can access the different options under the profile. If you go this route, the application process is self-service. And so what that means is you'll be working through the platform to satisfy any documents with notifications being sent via email. A $25 deposit fee does apply and is not refundable, but it does get applied to your license once issued. However, you want to make sure that you do your due diligence so that you select the right license type. Now, the second option to submitting for a business license is in person, and this can be done at City Hall, 121 North LaSalle, Monday through Friday, between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. We're located in room 805 on the 8th floor. We operate on a walk-in basis, so no appointments are necessary. And as you arrive to the center or upon arrival, you'll notice a reception as the one highlighted in the image there. And the reception will have a consultant or two where they'll greet you, call you over, and they'll just ask you the reason for your visit. Based on the initial dialogue or conversation that you have with them, they will provide you a ticket, and will also have you complete a business information sheet if you haven't already done so. Now, regarding the business information sheet, it's good to note that it is available online. And so it would be beneficial for you to look at it beforehand or maybe have it pre-filled prior to your visit. This way, you know what some of the documents or some of the information that's going to be required from you. Once your ticket is called, then at that point, you will meet one-on-one with a business consultant, and they'll work with you to submit your application or have a consultation around your business activities or provide you the proper guidance. Do note that if you do plan on visiting us in person, the wait times are available online. And you can check the wait times by visiting chicago.gov/business licensing. So now that we've explored the different avenues for submitting a business license application, again, you can do it online via our portal or in person. Let's discuss the three most common license types that enable you or allow you to be able to prepare and or sell food. First, we have our restaurant, cafe, grocery store, and market license. This license is needed if you plan on doing any sort of food preparation. That is, if you plan on serving, storing, selling, or distributing food out of a physical brick and mortar location. The second license will be that we will go over today will be that of a share kitchen user license. And this license will need to be obtained if you do not have a brick and mortar location, but are planning to prepare food to then sell out of a food truck or a non motorized cart. If you're a caterer without, again, a brick and mortar location, a physical location, or if, for instance, you're a startup who will prepare food to then wholesale to stores. Um, that shared kitchen user license would be the one that you would, in essence, apply for. So we'll cover that. And then we will also review our peddler license. And this license is or needed if you want to sell whole fruits, whole vegetables, industrially prepackaged food such as chocolate bars, prepackaged candy, bottled water, sports drinks along the public way. So these are the three most common sought after license types that we will go over today um, to give you some insight into how to obtain it. So let's now jump into each of them a little further. So if you're planning to open up an establishment, a physical brick and mortar location where food's going to be prepared, served, stored, sold, or distributed, here are a few key operational details you want to keep in mind. First, zoning. So check zoning with us first to see if the activity you want to engage in is permitted at that address. Don't assume that because the location, the site, or the building, don't assume that because it previously operated, let's say as a restaurant, that you going into that location will also allow you or permit you to also operate a restaurant. Checking with us. So you can check zoning with us so that we can make that determination. And we will also at the same time allow you or let you know whether a build out might be required. And so before you jump into a financial commitment, before you sign the lease or purchase, a property for that matter, provide us the address, let us know in detail the activities you plan, the food activities you plan to engage in, and then we'll do our review and inform you whether or not such activity is allowed. And the reason you want to do this is because let's say the address you give us allows for it to serve as a restaurant. Perfect. But then you also want to engage in the practice of wholesale, right? Well, that might not necessarily be allowed. You might be able to do the food aspect of it, right? You might be able to run a restaurant out of that location. However, zoning may not allow for you to be able to produce quantities to then be able to sell at wholesale. So check zoning with us first. Let us know in detail what you plan your operation to be. The more we know, the better. What we don't want to do is under license you or have you not have the proper license. So a key operational detail here is zoning review. When looking to apply for a restaurant or a cafe, a grocery store, a market, anytime you're looking to prepare food, you are going to need to satisfy a City of Chicago Food Service Manager certificate. This certificate lets us know that you've taken the necessary training or you've gone through the necessary courses to be able to handle or prepare food according to City of Chicago requirements. And so this is needed anytime you are going to prepare food. Um, More information around the Chicago Food Service Manager Certificate can be found online on the City of Chicago Department of Public Health website. There are various locations across Chicago where you can go and obtain this Chicago Food Service Manager Certificate. But again, as highlighted, do note that anytime you're looking to prepare food, you are going to, and you're looking to submit your application, submit for your license, this is a key requirement that we're going to need you to satisfy. A copy of it would be okay, or if you bring us your physical copy, we can make a copy of it here. If you're doing your application online, you'll need to upload a copy of your Chicago Food Service Manager Certificate via the portal. Another key operational detail you want to keep in mind when looking to establish a restaurant is that we are going to need a copy of your lease. If you own the property, we will need you to, make out a lease, to your legal entity or however it is that you plan on operating. But we will need you to satisfy a copy of your lease, or a copy of a lease with the address. It does need to be made out to your legal entity, right? So not your DBA, not your, not the name that we would see displayed, at your store if you were to go out and visit your location, but rather your legal entity, right? So how you're conducting business as. For example, if your legal entity is 1234 Incorporated, and your DBA, you're doing business as is 1234 Food, what we would need to see on your lease is 1234 Incorporated. So the lease needs to be made out to your legal entity. And on that lease, you want to ensure that the square footage is on there. We cannot enter an application if we do not have the square footage of the establishment that you plan on conducting this operation from. So whether you're a cafe, a restaurant, a grocery store that's going to engage in the preparation of food, a market that again is going to prepare food, we're going to need to have the square footage of that establishment. Another key operational detail is, because you are selling a product, because you are selling food, you're going to need to obtain an Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number. And this is obtained with the state. This can be obtained at 555 West Monroe. And this Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number is required because, again, you're selling food and you need to report your sales to the state. Without this number, we cannot finalize your application. And so this is a key operational detail that you're going to want to have when you are getting ready to submit your application. These are all, everything that I'm highlighting here, these are all key items that you want to have by the time that you're looking to apply. When obtaining the Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number, please ensure that you acquire it based off how you're going to be operating. So if you're going to be operating as a legal entity, make sure that it's obtained via that legal entity. If you're going to apply as a sole proprietor, then that Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number needs to be obtained under your name. Additional key operational details you want to keep in mind is that whenever you're looking to apply for a retail food establishment license, you will undergo a city debt check. And so you want to make sure that you have all city debt resolved, because if it's not resolved, this could delay issuance. It could delay the approval of you being able to obtain your City of Chicago business license. And so by that, we mean parking bills, or parking tickets, water bills, things along those lines. And so you can either satisfy the balances in full, or you can get on a payment plan, but you want to ensure that you check and see if you have any city debt prior to the city debt check taking place. Because if we conduct our city debt check and you fail it, then we need to do a reinspection of that check, and that again can prolong the process. Your application will also undergo an inspection from the Chicago Department of Public Health, the Food Protection Division. And so they will go out to your location and then just conduct their inspection to ensure that you are in compliance with their regulations. And so the city debt check, again, you can um, be proactive here and check with with the city clerk to see if there are any outstanding debt. The public health inspection, the food protection inspection, there's really this is going to get scheduled. So they will call you once your application is submitted um, to get that scheduled out. Now, do note that a retail food establishment license, the cost here, it ranges from $660 being the minimum to a maximum of $1,650, and it is based on square footage. So again, another reason why we need to have in detail what the square footage of your establishment is. Because again, without the square footage, we can't even process through an application. So these are just key operational details that you want to keep top of mind whenever you're getting ready to submit your application. Before you do anything, provide us the address. Check with us first to see if the activity is permitted. Make sure that you have obtained your City of Chicago Food Service Manager certificate because you are going to need to satisfy it. Your lease, we are going to need a copy of a lease. It needs to be made out to the legal entity. Because you're selling food, you're selling a product, you do need your Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number. And then once we generate your application, once you pay for it, um, then that's what triggers inspections. And some of those inspections include a debt check and also an inspection, an on-site inspection from the Chicago Department of Public Health, the Food Protection Division. And this is, again, if you're looking to establish a restaurant, a cafe, a grocery store, and a market that's going to prepare food. So moving on to the second most common food license type, share kitchen user. So to obtain this license, you will also need to have a City of Chicago food service manager certificate. And again, this certificate is needed so that we ensure that you've taken the necessary courses to be able to properly handle food in the city of Chicago. Now, this shared kitchen user license, that's highlighted earlier, is needed anytime you are looking to prepare food and you're not doing it from a brick and mortar location. So you don't have a physical location yourself. Um, One thing that's not allowed is a preparation of food from home. So the city of Chicago does not allow the preparation of food from home. And so this is where the share kitchen user license comes into play. So that we know that the food that you plan on preparing and selling is prepared in a regulated space. You need to obtain a share kitchen user license if you do not have a physical brick and mortar location. Now, I mentioned that the preparation of food from home is not permitted. There is what's called a cottage food license, which we won't go into today. But if it does contain a small list of items that are permitted to be prepared from home, and so for more information on that, you can check the uh, Chicago Department of Public Health Food Protection Division website and just search cottage food, and it'll give you information on what that license or what that what that cottage food license allows you to do from home. But for the most part, anything outside of whatever that cottage food license allows, um, it can be done from home. And so that's where the Share Kitchen user license comes into play. The Share Kitchen user license is needed so that you're able to prepare food from what's considered a share kitchen operator or a share kitchen. Um, Again, to obtain this license, you need your City of Chicago Food Service Manager certificate. You're going to need to also satisfy a letter of intent from the share kitchen, and it needs to be dated within the last 30 days. Um, you will want to ensure that that letter of intent is made out to the legal entity and not the DBA. Okay, so again, if you're going to operate as a corporation, as an LLC, or if you're going to operate as a sole proprietor, that letter of intent needs to be made out according to how you plan on operating. The share kitchen or space you plan on preparing food from must have, again, what's called a share kitchen operator license or a share kitchen supplemental license. Um, don't assume that you can just go into a restaurant and prepare your food there. They need to have the specific license type to be able to allow you to be able to go into their space to prepare your food. And so again, um, that's where, again, we would verify, right? We would check and see if it's a regulated space that permits such activity, when you satisfy that letter of intent. So again, you can search online for what's called commissaries or share kitchens, um, and you can check with us to see if they do have the proper license to be able to allow you to then be able to prepare your food at their location. Now, when you apply for this license, the share kitchen user license, do note that you're going to need to satisfy a menu, so a listing of all the items that you intend on preparing, because again, more than likely you are going to be selling food. um, you're going to need to obtain the Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number. And the Share Kitchen user license also undergoes a city debt check. So, as highlighted before, you want to ensure that all your city debt is resolved, because if it's not and we do our inspection, it's going to prolong the process, license issuance. And then this Share Kitchen user license, it does undergo a consultation with the Department of Public Health, with the Food Protection Division. And this consultation is needed to review and ensure that the proper equipment, the proper sanitation, and the required documents are in place for us to be able to issue this Share Kitchen user license. And so really the way it works here is you would obtain, again, your City of Chicago Food Service Manager certificate. You would obtain your letter of intent from a Share Kitchen operator or a commissary. Once you have both those items, then we can go ahead and generate your application. Once your application is generated and paid for, then that's what triggers the debt check to take place, and that's what gives a way for you to be able to go for your in-person consultation. And so the consultations are held at the Department of Public Health Lexington office. But again, you first need to have an application submitted for. You can't just go for a consultation without an application having been submitted. The Share Kitchen user license has a cost of $330 if you're looking to have a Share Kitchen user license for 2 years. So this is what we call our long-term Share Kitchen user license. And then we also have our short-term Share Kitchen user license, which is good for 90 days. And this has a cost of $75. Do note that if you choose to pursue the short-term license, that license is not, it can't be renewed. And so once the 90 days are up, you will have to resubmit a brand new application, satisfying all the documents all over again, going through the debt check, going through the consultation. If you go for the long-term 2-year license, then you would just need to renew. You don't have to resubmit a new application. So just something that you want to keep in mind. And so again, this is our Share Kitchen user license. So this is if you don't plan on operating a restaurant, if you don't plan on having a physical brick and mortar location, but you want to prepare food to then sell or wholesale, or if you're a caterer without a physical brick and mortar location, or if you intend on doing wholesale, right, without having a physical brick and mortar location, the Share Kitchen user license, in essence, would allow you to be able to engage in these activities if approved. And then lastly, our peddler license. So a peddler license allows you to be able to sell whole fruits, whole vegetables, so they can't be cut. There's no preparation of fruit or vegetables. It needs to be whole. It allows you to also sell industrially prepackaged food, such as chocolate bars, prepackaged candy, bottled water, sports drinks, etc. And the food, candy must be prepackaged and sealed. So it needs to be mass produced. It needs to have labels. So the peddler license allows you to be able to sell these items along the public way. You're able to sell it from a wagon, a vehicle, or cart that continually moves from place to place. You must be 18 years of age, and you cannot set up a table or have a fixed structure. And with this license, do note that certain areas of the city are designated no peddling zones, in which street peddlers are not permitted to conduct business. And these districts are listed in the Municipal Code of Chicago, Section 4-244 140. And there's also a list that is kept in the office of the city clerk. So, again, this is another license that will allow you to be able to sell food, that being whole fruits, whole vegetables, and industrially prepackaged items, such as the ones that are highlighted on screen. This license can only be applied for as a sole proprietor. And so what we mean by that is it's applied for under your name. We cannot, this license cannot be applied for or issued under an LLC or a corporation. This license, because you are going to be selling again a product, you are going to need to obtain an Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number. So by the time you're looking to apply, you want to make sure that you have this Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number, because if you don't have it, you'll need to acquire it. And then it's just, again, prolonging the process of the peddler license being issued. So you want to have this number ready to go by the time that you're looking to apply. And again, because this license can only be applied for as a sole proprietor, you would take out that Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number under your name. The cost for this license is $100, and it covers you for 2 years. If you are a senior citizen, 65 years or older, it's actually $50, and it also covers you for 2 years. So these are the three most common license types that allow you to be able to sell food. We have our restaurant, cafe, grocery store, market license, a retail food establishment license if you plan on preparing food, serving it out of a brick and mortar location. Again, just to recap, you're going to need a lease. You're going to need your food. Anytime you're preparing food, you're going to need the food sanitation certificate from the city of Chicago. So you're going to need the lease, the certificate, and then you're going to need your IDOR number. For the share kitchen user license, same, a lease doesn't apply, but a letter of intent from the share kitchen operator does. So we need to see that agreement, basically highlighting that you've been permitted or allowed to be able to prepare your food from that share kitchen operator location. And then you're also going to need to satisfy, among some key documents, right, your City of Chicago Food Service sanitation certificate. The peddler license, because you're not preparing food, because again, you're only permitted to sell whole fruits, whole vegetables, they're not being prepared, industrially prepackaged food, such as what's highlighted on the screen. This license type does not require you to have the City of Chicago Food Service Sanitation Certificate, because again, you're not preparing food. Okay, and there isn't a zoning review with this license because again, you're not at a physical location. You're moving along the public way. So that's a little insight into the most common food license types that get issued here by the city of Chicago. However, there are many more. For more information on those, you can visit chicago.gov/business license, and you'll find all the other types of food licenses that the city of Chicago has to offer, such as food trucks, non-motorized carts, things of that nature. Now, by the time you're looking to apply for either or any of these license types, you should already have your business registered with the appropriate government agency, or at least have had an idea of how you plan on operating. As highlighted, right, if you're going to obtain that peddler license, you don't need to establish a legal entity with the state because that license gets applied for under your name. But if you are going to obtain a Share Kitchen user license, or if you're going to open up a restaurant or a bakery or a cafe, and you want to do it under a legal entity, you want to get this established with the appropriate government agencies. Um, some of the documents that are going to need to be provided um, with your application is going to be a government issued photo identification. Again, if you're establishing a legal entity with the Secretary of State, we're going to need your articles of organization if you establish an LLC, or articles of incorporation if you establish a corporation, um, because you're selling something, you're selling a product, you're selling something tangible. You're going to need to obtain the Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number, otherwise known as IDOR. And you'll need an EIN number, so an employer ID number from the IRS for your legal entity. So again, if you're forming a legal entity, you'll need to obtain an IDOR number under that legal entity, and you'll need to obtain an EIN number from the IRS under that legal entity. All names need to match. There can't be a mismatch. Otherwise, that could prolong the process of you being able to apply for your license. Now, do note that if you're registered in a state outside of Illinois, so let's say you establish your legal entity in Wisconsin or Michigan, you'll need to register your entity with the state of Illinois as a foreign entity. So if you've, again, established your legal entity outside of Illinois, you'll need to register as a foreign entity with the state of Illinois. So once your documents are in order, then it's time to submit your application. If in person, you'll submit the business information sheet form that was referenced earlier. That again can be pulled ahead of time at chicago.gov/business licensing, and it can be pre-filled right prior to your visit. If you're going online, if you're submitting your application online, then you'll enter the information via the platform. Now, do note that the peddler license cannot be applied for online. It needs to be done in person. All applications will require the ownership info for all controlling parties. So let's say you establish a corporation. We're going to need the information of all the owners, so the president or the secretary, whoever you list as the president or the secretary. We'll need the information of all controlling parties, and that includes the name, the date of birth, the social security number, and the records must match. So whoever you list with the Secretary of State as president or secretary, or as a managing member if you establish a legal entity or an LLC, whoever we see on state records needs to match what we're going to enter here on city records. And so if you have to make some corrections, make sure that you do that prior to applying for your City of Chicago license, because again, records need to match. Well, what we see on the state website needs to match what we're going to enter here at city level. Now, your application will also call for the address so that zoning can determine if the activity is allowed at that location. Again, licenses are issued, are location driven, and so unless you're establishing, if you're establishing a brick and mortar establishment, like if you're going to open up a restaurant, that license cannot be moved around, right? It's been given to that specific address. And so we will need the exact address of where you plan on this operation taking place, so that zoning can do its proper review. Again, for a peddler license, it doesn't undergo a zoning review just because you're moving along the public way, so you don't have a physical location. And so for that reason, there's no zoning review. We'll need the square footage. And again, we need the square footage up front in order for us to even be able to create the application. And as highlighted earlier, we would want to see that on the lease. And another thing with the square footage, the reason why we need it is because for retail food establishments, so for brick and mortar locations, the fee of that license is driven by the square footage. And we're going to want a detailed description of all business activities that are plan on being conducted at that location. What we want to know is, all right, how are you going to make money? What service or product are you going to offer? Are you going to engage in wholesale? Are you strictly just going to be on-site dining? Is it going to be just carry out? The more we know around your food operation, the more we'll be able to properly license you. And so for those reasons, we want a detailed description of all the business activities that you plan on having take place at your location, your address. Let's now talk zoning. So zoning is the first review your application undergoes if you're operating from a brick and mortar location. Again, a zoning review does not apply if you're applying for a peddler license. And the reason why a zoning review is needed is to ensure, first and foremost, that your business activity is allowed at that address. And so to ensure a proper review, as previously highlighted, we want a detailed description of your activity. We want to know the space, right? So square footage. And then we're also going to want to know, what are you going to engage in, right? If you're just going to be a restaurant, great. If you're going to be a restaurant that also engages in the activity of wholesale, right? So selling your product to stores, that changes things. And such address may not permit the wholesale aspect of your operation. And so we'll want to know in detail what you plan your operation on being so that we can properly license you. Some applications might require you to provide us architectural plans, site plans, or a survey. Um, in some cases, you might need to meet compliance of parking requirements, and/or we might need verification of a valid driveway permit from CDOT. Um, think about it this way, right? Going back to the architectural plans, if the establishment that you're looking to conduct a restaurant from previously served as an office space, and it's empty, more than likely that's going to require a build out. And so we're going to need to review the architectural plans prepared by a licensed architect and the Department of Building Permits. Because again, that space, that location hasn't been converted, hasn't been built out for you to be able to operate a full blown restaurant. If the location that you're looking to apply at previously, served as a restaurant, don't assume that a build out won't be required or that certain things may not need to get corrected. And so for that reason, you'll want to check zoning with us first so that we can let you know, hey, this is an empty space. You're going to need to hire an architect. You're going to need a build out, right? We're able to check in our records and determine what that location last operated as, and let you know, where you stand as far as being able to engage or engage in the activity that you're looking to operate. Now, as you get ready to apply or go through zoning, you want to keep these reminders in mind. Again, check with us first. Do not jump into a financial commitment unless we've confirmed as part of the license application process that your proposed business activity is allowed at the address. Don't assume that the previous occupant's zoning designation applies to you. Just because it was a restaurant before doesn't mean that it can be a restaurant today, or doesn't mean that it might not need a build out. We'll be able to make that determination by doing a zoning review. And then just keep in mind, right, that you may be required to provide plans prepared by a licensed architect and a Department of Building Permits to establish your use. So once zoning approves, then we will generate a full application, which you will need to acknowledge and verify. The completion includes, just making sure that we entered all your information correctly in the system. So you'll look at the application and ensure that email address is correct, phone number, date of birth, name, that the legal entity was correctly typed in. Because again, if there's a mistake along the way and it's catched later in the process, it could delay obviously the issuance of your license. So we want to be able to catch this, right up front. And so review your application, right? Once zoning approves, we generate the application, we give it to you. You're going to complete it. You're going to review it. Uh, you will need to, again, in order for us to mark your application completed, you'll need to provide us, again, a lease or documentation showing control of the property. And this is if you plan on operating out of a brick and mortar location. So if you're opening up a restaurant, a cafe, a bakery, a grocery store that's going to prepare food, a lease is going to need to be provided along with food manager certificate. If you're pursuing the Sure Kitchen user license, then we're going to need that letter of intent from the Sure Kitchen operator or the commissary. Same thing, we'll need the City of Chicago Food Service sanitation certificate. And so you'll provide us the needed documents, and then you'll answer the questions on your application. And some of those are attestations. So we'll give you the application, you'll review it, complete it, satisfy the documents. Once everything's in order, then we will review the application for completeness. And once the application is complete, we'll mark it on our end as complete. If you're pursuing a retail food establishment license to set up a restaurant, a bakery store, a grocery store, a market that's going to prepare food, once we mark the application complete, we're going to give you a payment coupon. And so at this point, your application has been received, documents have been satisfied, we've marked your application as complete. What's then going to happen is we're going to give you a payment coupon. You'll make payment for your license, and this is going to trigger inspections. So this will, again, trigger that check, and it'll kick off the on-site inspection by the Department of Public Health. If you are pursuing the Sure Kitchen user license, once again, you've submitted your application to us, you've satisfied the documents, we'll mark the application complete. We will give you a payment coupon. You'll make payment for your Sure Kitchen user license. And what payment will trigger is, again, the inspection by the Department of Finance. So they'll do their debt check. And it's at that point in time that you can then go and meet with the Department of Public Health for your consultation. Again, it's different, right? If you're operating out of a brick and mortar location, if you're establishing a restaurant, a grocery store, a bakery, a cafe, Department of Public Health does an on-site inspection. They'll schedule that with you. They'll go out to your location. If you're pursuing the Sure Kitchen user license, you will have to go in person for your consultation. And you can only go in person for your consultation once you've made payment for your license, which again can only be done so if you've satisfied the document and we've marked your application as complete. Okay. For the peddler license, once you've completed your application, you've obtained your, at this point, you've more than likely obtained your Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number. Again, you don't need a lease. You don't need a letter of intent for the peddler license because, again, you're not preparing food and you're moving along the way. But in essence, once we've marked your application complete, we will give you your payment coupon. And more than likely, once you make payment, your peddler license gets issued same day. Again, it's different from having a brick and mortar location. Is different from having a Sure Kitchen user license because you're not preparing food. You're selling whole fruits, whole vegetables, food that's been industrially prepackaged. And so for that reason, you'll want to note the comment at the bottom, note that payment does not mean the license has been issued. Payment triggers inspections and final approvals prior to the license being issued. Now, when it comes to inspections are license type driven, right? So again, a peddler license, there is no debt check, there is no health inspection. DOB doesn't have to go and inspect your establishment because you're selling along the public way. However, if you had to do a build out, right, because you're going to operate a restaurant out of a brick and mortar location, then a Department of Buildings inspection might get required. Health inspection, debt check, and this applies to also share kitchen user license. You'll undergo the debt check and the consultation with the Department of Public Health. You won't undergo a building inspection because again, you're conducting your operation from a shared kitchen. And once you've gone through inspections, if any, then you're almost at the finish line. Remember, at this point, you've entered your application, right? So you've gone through zoning, um, you've satisfied the needed documents, you've reviewed your application, everything we've entered matches your information, right? We've marked the application complete. Um, the last thing that would hold up license issuance would be city holds, right? So if you don't pass that check. Um, and holds could include overdue city tax filings, outstanding fines resulting from business enforcement, parking tickets, overdue public way use payments, water bills, uh, any outstanding changes to maybe a prior license that you had in the past or things along those lines. And so you'll want to check with the Department of Finance to ensure that there are no outstanding liabilities because a failed inspection could prolong license issuance. If there is that, again, you can pay it in full or get on a payment plan. Do note that notice of holds, including instructions on how to resolve the holds, are sent by mail to business locations and are available on Chicago Business Direct. And so once all inspections are approved, once all holds are resolved, if any, then it's at that point in time that your license gets issued. Now, if you are operating from a brick and mortar location, if you're establishing a restaurant, a cafe, a bakery store, a grocery store, a market, you'll get the license certificate that looks like the one that you see displayed on the screen. If you're pursuing the peddler license or the share kitchen user license, you won't get this blue license certificate. Instead, what you'll get is a badge. And so once you've passed your inspections for your share kitchen user license and your license is ready or your share kitchen user license has been approved, you'll come down to City Hall and you'll obtain your badge. And you'll need to come down here because we have to take a picture of you. And that picture it's placed on your badge. And so you'll come here to City Hall. It's the same thing with the peddler license. Once we approve your peddler license, after you've made payment and got through the process, we'll give you a form. You'll take it downstairs to the city clerk. They'll take your picture, and then they will hand you your badge, basically stating that you are ready to operate along the public way, or that you are ready to operate out of a shared kitchen facility, out of commissary with your badge. If you're establishing a restaurant, you'll get the license certificate. And so, in summary, for these services and much more, we invite you to please visit chicago.gov/business licensing, where you'll be able to apply, renew, and update your license records. You will also find more information on required documents, application steps, and additional license types. Again, today we only covered 3 license types, and that's a retail food establishment license if you're operating on a brick and mortar location. So think of restaurant, grocery store, cafe, bakery. We covered share kitchen user license. So if you don't have a physical location, but you're going to engage in the preparation of food, you'll need a share kitchen user license to be able to do it out of a share kitchen uh, location or a commissary. And then we covered the peddler license that allows you to be able to sell food along the public way. And again, that food is limited to whole fruits, whole vegetables, and mass-produced items that have been prepackaged. Should you need additional information, please feel free to pay us a visit online at Chicago Business Direct or in person at City Hall, 121 North LaSalle, room 805. Monday through Friday between 8:30 a.m., 4:30 p.m. Um, and if you happen to have any questions, let's say you want us to do a zoning review to determine whether or not your business operation is permitted at X address, shoot us an email, businesslicense@cityofchicago.org. Or if you just have additional questions around food license types, you can shoot us an email, businesslicense@cityofchicago.org, or come in person. You'll meet with a consultant. They'll answer any and all questions that you might have around the steps required to obtain your license. Um, we'd be more than happy to help you out. And so at this point in time, we will turn it over to um, questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for a great presentation. We have some questions, so let's start. How long is this license good for? The very first license that you discussed, they're looking for how long the license is good
Yeah,
for.
so the retail food establishment license, when you're looking to operate out of a brick and mortar location, let's say a restaurant, a cafe, a grocery store, a bakery, that license is good for 2 years.
Okay, great. Are the same sanitation department requirements needed for an operation that is brewing their own wine, but that does not make food on site?
Yeah, so anything that has to do with liquor is handled by our hospitality team. So what you could do is you could send us an email at businesslicense@cityofchicago.org, and we can route your question over to our hospitality team, and they're the ones that handle um, any and all related matters to wine or liquor, and they'll also work collectively with the Department of Public Health to help answer that question.
Great. I have a vending machine that squeezes oranges and dispenses fresh fruit juice in a sealed cup. This is all done instantly where the customer pays and pushes a button. Oranges are stored inside the refrigerated vending machine and cannot be tampered with. I plan to place these vending machines at gyms, hospitals, and airports. What kind of license do I need?
Yeah, well, a license will definitely be needed. I think the first hurdle there, or not necessarily a hurdle, but the first thing we would want to take a look at is we would want to get the Department of Public Health involved, just because I'm sure they'll want to know a little bit more about the mechanisms around that vending machine, to see if it has, like a stop. Like, let's say, something happens with your machine and it's no longer cold orange juice, or it doesn't meet a certain, temperature requirement. And so really, I think that would, we would first want to get that in front of the Department of Public Health to see if it's something that, from a health perspective, would be permitted. You can shoot them an email at food@cityofchicago.org. That's food@cityofchicago.org, and then just share with them, right, your vending machine. Share with them the mechanisms of it, um, and if it's something that from a health perspective they would allow, then we would then proceed to the licensing aspect of it.
Okay, great. If you are preparing an item via shared kitchen for packaging and then occasionally food for an event or catering, is that all covered under the shared kitchen license for an LLC, or is there a separate license needed for both?
Yeah, so if you plan on preparing food from a commissary, from a shared kitchen, the shared kitchen user license permits you to be able to, again, prepare your food, package it there. And then if you're going to engage in the activity of catering, that shared kitchen user license would also permit you to do that. Um, it's different, right? If you're going to be a caterer with liquor, that's where, again, we would get our hospitality team involved, just because that changes a little bit the landscape of the process and requirements. So if you're doing catering, no liquor, shared kitchen user license all day, every day. But if you are planning on getting liquor involved, then we would have to get our hospitality involved. And again, you can shoot us an email and we can route your questions over to them.
Great. Does peddler license cover t-shirts, cups, and mugs? And thanks for a great presentation.
Yes, it actually does. Yeah. So the peddler license allows you to be able to sell general merchandise. So hats, gloves, pens, balloons, in addition to selling whole fruit, whole vegetables, and industrially prepackaged items such as water bottles, snacks that have been mass produced.
Is there a way to check if a business has any city debts prior to applying for a licensing?
Um, uh, hmm, can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. Is there a way to check if a business has any city debts prior to applying for licensing?
Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to check if another business has that. Only the owner of that establishment would be able to. But if you are looking to apply, right, and you want to make sure that you don't owe any city debt, you can check with the city clerk.
Okay, great. So if I sell cookies and cakes with no brick and mortar, shared kitchen license plus food management certificate and a peddler.
Yeah, so again, the peddler only allows you to be able to sell whole fruits, whole vegetables, and industrially prepackaged items, mass produced. So again, think bottled waters, Snicker bars, chips. It will not allow you to sell, your cake, for instance. You won't be able to do that with the peddler license. Um, but if you wanted to prepare food from, let's say a cake, right? You don't have a brick and mortar location, you can do it with the Share Kitchen user license. And then you can sell that from a mobile food dispenser or a non motorized food cart if public health deems it acceptable.
Okay, great. What license do I need if I'm selling something, selling through someone else's brick and mortar space? My product will be sold on their shelves to the general public.
Yeah. So if you're, let me see here. Are you on the Q&A or is this the chat
This is a
question?
Q&A. So what license do I need if I'm selling through someone else's brick and mortar space?
Yeah. So at that point in time, I'm going to assume you're preparing, you would have to prepare the items out of a commissary, out of a share kitchen. And then when you get ready to apply for that share kitchen user license, you would just let us know that you're doing wholesale. And then at that point in time, you can wholesale to stores.
Great. I'm not really sure. Is site control required for a zoning check?
I don't, that's a,
Yeah, whoever sent that question, if you could clarify in either the chat or the Q&A. Next question, can zoning designation be changed? If so, how?
it can, you would have to go through your alderman. You, that would be the, the way to do it, go about it.
Okay, when the Chicago Department of Health comes to out to inspect, what are they looking for specifically?
Yeah, there's an extensive list of items that they're looking at. And so you can visit again chicago.gov/business license. If you go to application or license types, you'll hit food, and the requirements of that inspection will be highlighted in one of those bullet points on that tab.
BACP also offers city inspections, ask question, get help once a month. That's the first Wednesday of every month. And if you go to chicago.gov/BACP webinars, you'll see June's is already posted. Next question, do you need a license to sell bottled alkaline water?
Yes, yeah. If you're going to do it along the public way, you need a license. You need the peddler license. Again, the peddler license allows you to be able to sell water, bottled water. And if you're going to sell it out of a brick and mortar location, right? If you're going to sell it out of a store, you're going to need a license for that.
Okay, great. How are food trailers/trucks inspected and what type of license do I need?
Yeah, so food trailers are not permitted within city limits. Food trucks are, so it needs to be a food truck. The city of Chicago does not allow food trailers. If you want to check with the Chicago Park District, like let's say you want to set up a trailer at the park, inside the park, or in by the lake, right? You would work with the Chicago Park District for that. But as far as a trailer being allowed on, let's say LaSalle Street, the city of Chicago does not allow trailers.
Which city of Chicago license is needed to sell banana pudding via Uber Eats?
Um, if you have a restaurant and you're preparing this from your restaurant, and your restaurant license is going to cover you. But if you're, again, you can't prepare this from home, so you'll need a Sure Kitchen user license, uh, and then at that point in time, um, you'd be able to the Uber aspect. I wouldn't be able to get into that just because I don't know about that. But as far as preparing your pudding, it would need to be from uh, either a Sure Kitchen operator, a commissary, or a restaurant that holds a supplemental license to allow you to prepare your pudding. So you'll need a Sure Kitchen user.
Do you know how long it takes for a debt check to be completed?
Typically, it can take anywhere between 10 to 14 business days from the moment payment for your license is made. So once we've marked your application complete and we give you the payment coupon and you make payment, that triggers inspections and that check 10 to 14 business days. Could be longer if that we've seen an influx in applications, but 10 to 14.
What license would apply to non-traditional businesses? For instance, the people that are allowed to make barbecue or tacos on the street corners.
Yeah, that's not the preparation of food is along the public way is not permitted. What the city of Chicago permits is, again, um, the item needs to be ready to go, right? So it needs to be pre-made at a share kitchen, and then to be sold for direct consumption. No preparation, no additions being added, and so that's why, like, if you come downtown, right, you'll never see a hot dog stand because they're not permitted. You can't prepare food. You can't have live heat, or you can't prepare food live in the public. It all needs to be prepackaged, ready to go.
Great. Does the prepared food verbiage include fresh pressed juices, smoothies, and bowls?
It does, yeah. I mean, it includes coffee, right? If you're going to prepare coffee, that's prepared food.
If you already have your Bassett license, does a catering business owner also hold a peddler license with the city?
Uh, oh, what type of license was that?
I think that it's the confusion of the Bassett certification is they're using as a license. They're s- they're referring to it as a license. So
Mm,
if you already have your Bassett license, does a catering business owner also hold a peddler license with the city? So I think it's a clarification of what the Bassett training is.
got it. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Bassett. I'm sorry, but again, if you shoot us an email, businesslicense@cityofchicago.org, I'll look into it and I can get right back to you.
How
But
do you
again, the peddler license only allows you to be able to sell um, whole fruit, whole vegetables, and industrially prepackaged, mass-produced items. That's strictly what the peddler license allows you to sell.
how do you go through zoning to approves it?
So I'm going to assume that's how does one go through zoning? So you can give us the address if you stop by here at City Hall, room 805, eighth floor. You can give us the address. We'll plug it into our system and see if your activity is permitted, or you can shoot us the address. You can let us, give us a detailed description of what you plan what you want your operation to be, and then we can check to see if it's permitted at such address.
But we could cook food in our food truck, right?
Yeah, food truck is permitted. Yep. You have to have the proper, so you have to have, and again, we'll more than likely have a food edition 2.0 where we go into food trucks. So stay tuned for that. But for a food truck, we have what's called a dispenser and a preparer license. And so if you're just dispensing, meaning you've prepared your food, it's enclosed, it's just ready for them to buy and for them to take away because you've prepared the food at a share kitchen, right? And you're not preparing anything from the food truck, that would be the dispenser license. If you are going to prepare food from a truck, that would be the mobile food truck preparer license. And you'll need to obtain that license along with the share kitchen user license. Um, but yeah, if you have the proper license, you are able to prepare food from a food truck. Trucks are permitted.
How much does it cost for zoning?
So to check zoning, we don't charge. So if you're checking to see if something is allowed at 1234 North LaSalle, we don't charge for that.
If you had a shared kitchen license that expired less than a year ago, would my application process still be the same if none of my information has changed?
We would have to check and see if that renewal record is still live. So if the renewal record is still in our systems, and if you're still operating at the same commissary or share kitchen location, we would probably want to see an updated letter of intent. So it all really depends on what we see in our system. You know, if the renewal record isn't there, then you'll have to reapply.
For clarification, if a business owner is looking to purchase a building but wants to know its zoning designation before purchasing the building, are they able to do so?
Yeah, yeah. Everything check and see what that building allows, right? Obviously, we're not going to sit there and you have to give us, an idea of what you plan on operating there. If you're going to do a restaurant, we'll let you know if a restaurant is going to be permitted. Like you need to have a detailed idea of what you want to what activity you want to engage in at that address. It'll never be, hey, what's this address, what's allowed, because that's a opens up a can of worms. It's more so, this is what I want to engage in. Is it permitted?
What license is needed to sell fresh pressed juices as a vendor at an event pop-up shop?
Yeah, so you'll need a share kitchen user license. Um, if you don't have um, a restaurant, right? If you don't have a brick and mortar, a retail food establishment license, um, and that's really where we would start. And then the host, whoever the host is, would need to apply for the proper license for the event. So you would need a license, and whoever's the host of that event is would also need a license for that pop up, for that matter.
What are the license rules for selling food and drinks from a vending machine?
Yeah, so again, it really depends on if you're just doing pop from a vending machine, chips that are mass produced have been industrially prepackaged. We would license, right? You would need to have a commercial location because obviously, right, there's inventory involved. There's administrative work that you'll more than likely need to do for those vending machines, and so it's not an activity that we would license from home. You would need to have a commercial location, and so we would license you. We would license you as a miscellaneous commercial um, type license.
Okay, we have time for a few more questions. There are a few questions coming in about what can they cook from home? Can they sell cooked food out of their home? What type of food do they need to sell? Baked goods from their home. So maybe if you could just go over what can and cannot be done in the home.
Yeah, so from home, the list is very limited. And from home, the Department of Public Health regulates that by means of the cottage food license. So, cottage food. So, we didn't cover that today, but if you want information on the cottage food license, you can just, go online, search cottage food, uh, City of Chicago Department of Public Health, and pull up the application. On there, it lets you know what you are permitted to prepare from home via that license. Anything that's not listed on there, you cannot do from home. So, like, let's say, you want to prepare, um, I don't know, empanadas with meat inside of them, or tamales, with meat. That's not permitted with that cottage food license. What is permitted from with the cottage food license, from what I can remember, is like bread, very basic items. Um, uh, Bread. I think nuts are permitted, but again, the cottage food license, if you look it up, will give you that list is very limited of what you are able to do from home, and it still needs to get approved by the Department of Public Health. If you're gonna prepare like full blown cupcakes, cakes, you won't be able to do it from home. You need to do it from a share kitchen user. I'm sorry, from a share kitchen, a commissary, with your share kitchen user license, or if you have a restaurant or a retail food establishment license, you'll be able to do it from there.
Is there a separate City of Chicago license needed to take a product like sauces prepared in a shared kitchen to farmers markets and sell them to the public?
No, I mean the share kitchen user license would be it. Um, and that it would we would license you, right, to be able to prepare or do your sauces from a share kitchen um, facility, and then at that point in time, to be able to attend these farmer markets or these outdoor events, you would work with the Department of Cultural Affairs. They're the ones that handle these outdoor events, and so you would work with them to obtain the proper permits or license to be able to attend these farmer markets.
Does zoning Is zoning the only one to approve for you to sell from the home?
No, so again, from home, the only thing that if you're looking to do something from home, you would do it under the cottage food license. And again, this is handled strictly by the Department of Public Health, and that list of what you can prepare from home is very limited, very basic items.
Okay, great. Can I run a unit with a restaurant grade kitchen in a co-working building, private business suites, to do box catering orders? If so, what license will this need?
I think first and foremost, we would probably want a little bit. That sounds. Shoot us an email, because that sounds like there's a lot going on there. And so you can shoot us an email, business license at cityofchicago.org. If you have an address, right, we can plug that in, and then just give us a detailed description of what exactly your operation is going to be.
A question about a cigar lounge. Are they not allowed to sell food?
Are not allowed to sell food. If not, it's just the practice of you know smoke food. Just they don't. Public health won't allow that.
Great. We're getting a ton of thank yous, thank yous, thank yous. Great presentation. Again, more thank yous. Amir, thank you so much for your time and the great information you gave everyone. Everyone, thank you for attending. Hoping everyone has a great and safe night. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.